that when you all went through this exercise, first with the individual brands at GCPL, then later on around 2008 with the entire, the entire Godrej Industries corporate brand, what are some of the pangs or the pains associated in changing the lens with which you look at your business to the brand lens?
Well, in our case with the Godrej brand, it gets a bit complicated because we use the brand across many different businesses, different companies, different products. So studying what we do which enhances the brand and what subtracts from the brand. Over the years, we must have made a lot of mistakes which actually detract from brand value creation. And we've done some good things which have...
Give me an anecdote, Mr. Godrej.
Yeah, well, every time there's a complaint on one of our refrigerators, we are detracting from brand value. I mean, every time one of our businesses does not do well, one of our products has to be recalled from the market, it detracts from value. So one has to be very careful. Also, when you are in very different businesses with the same brand, like Gopal's business, you have to be very careful that the customer has some commonality between the different products you offer in that brand. How do you achieve that? How do you develop that? I think that's an important thing we've struggled with. I think we've found some solutions, but I think it's an ongoing process. Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, and also it's not just about what external stakeholders perceive, isn't it? It is about what internally all your internal stakeholders, the company, the employees, everybody who is part of the Godrej family has to understand.
That's a very important observation. I think one looks at brand value creation by customer insight, customer knowledge, but I think sensitizing your employees to what they are doing, as Sanjay also mentioned, I think is very critical to brand growth. So unless the employees have a total buy-in on what you wish to do with the brand, it becomes very difficult.
Okay. Mr. Gopalakrishnan, what role does marketing communication play when you look at brands, brand value and businesses from the perspective that we are looking at it and talking about it today?
In a product service brand, it is very important. It does not play the same role in a corporate brand. What editorial writing contributes to in a corporate brand, traditional advertising serves in a product service brand. Getting up every morning and seeing a newspaper ad which says, serving the country for 100 years, Tata's or Godrej, has a limited value before an IPO or something. We don't do that. But getting up every morning and saying surf washes whitest, or to be slightly controversial, rim washes whiter than, has a value. So I think I would make the distinction when Adi talks about Godrej as a brand, he's talking like I would about Tata as a brand across various categories, and I think that communication has limited value.
Sanjay Kapoor, advertising agencies, do they understand and do they see this imperative when it comes to their role, or are they still functioning in the old-fashioned traditional way when it comes to creating brand value, because they are actually partners, right, in the external perception of the brand, and Airtel does some fantastic advertising.
Yeah, I think you cannot throw any blame onto the advertising agencies. It's garbage in, garbage out. If you don't understand your briefs properly and you don't know what you're trying to communicate to your advertising agencies, then obviously what they'll produce to you will never meet the end requirement. So I think it's a partnership approach. They need to be an integral part of your thinking and an integral part of your strategy if you really want good communication to come out of them. We've been very, very transparent, and there's nothing which is a rocket science that we practice with them. I think it's very commonsensical. We make them a part of almost all interventions in the company, and the partnership approach is such that they virtually function out of our offices, and there's nothing about strategy, obviously, other than if you're participating in a bid or an acquisition, you're not going to tell them. But other than that, you by and large share all strategic stuff so that you don't lose out. It's such a complex business and it's ever changing. If their understanding of the business is not in line with yours, they will be always chasing your tail. Look at a business like ours. It at one end wants to appeal to all the rural customers of this country because it's hardly 20% penetrated. On the other side, all the urban youth, because they are the big spenders, they are the guys who consume all the value-added services and give you all the high ARPUs that you're talking about. The whole category is moving to a lifestyle category from a telecommunications category, and it's not about music now, it's about music, banking, health, advertising, blah, blah, blah. If that is true and these guys don't understand how you're going to be changing your survival strategies, you'll lose out. Communication is not going to work. So I don't think the blame's on them. We need to take the responsibility and onus and need to partner with these guys to have the best effect.
Indian accounting and Indian accountants will have to get compatible with the IFRS 3 standards starting next year, and this goodwill accounting is going to be dead. So give us a sense of how imperative it is, given this context, for Indian companies to start approaching taking the brand value approach to business.
Yeah, I think many Indian companies have stepped out into the global domain, acquired large brands and businesses. Unlike the Western world, which has copious sums of capital available to spend on mergers and acquisitions, and despite the sad track record of 80% of more mergers and acquisitions going kaput, we will have maybe 1 or 2 shots or 3 shots. So we got to get it right. And brands and several other intangible assets form the bulwark of most of these acquisitions. We better test them, stress test them, check whether full value is being extracted from them. That's going to be very important for Indian companies.
Mr. Godrej, GCPL has just acquired Mega Savvy. Is that the right way to say it?
Yes.
Okay, Mega Savvy. Give us a sense of what role brand played or brand value played when you finally signed that check, I'm guessing, for the amount you paid for it.
Yeah, it's very important because this is a fast-moving consumer goods company where as we've discussed earlier, most of the value really resides in the brands. So the strength of the brand, we did a lot of due diligence on the brands. The strength of the brand is extremely important in such an acquisition because as we discussed earlier, the physical assets can be very easily reproduced. There's not much value in those physical assets typically. I think most of the value lies in the brands and to a certain extent in the intellectual property of the people and the patents, etc. So again, brand is very important. And in many cases, we don't have a time to do a detailed brand valuation, but we do it a little bit by feel. And of course, if you value a typical fast-moving consumer goods company by some multiple of profits or EBITDA, and all the difference typically between that valuation and the physical asset valuation and cash on the books is really created by the brand, the value of the brand. So that's extremely important, and we must be clear when we acquire a business like that and we pay a fair sum for the business that we can add to the brand value as we go forward. I think that's very critical. If we're acquiring a company which has brand value but we're not able to add much to it, then I would say it's best to be left alone.
If I were to acquire an FMCG company, typically what percentage of that bill would be for the brand?
Maybe 80%.
Okay, I have one final question which I'm going to pose to all of you in common, starting with you, Unnikrishnan. What's the one big challenge that you have to overcome if a business needs to wholeheartedly and successfully take on this approach, which is the brand value approach?
I think balancing short-term with long-term. As of now, no company that we have evaluated, we have evaluated close to 6,000, 7,000 odd companies that we have studied. Most of the time there is no metric, there is no balancing point. It is all intuition and gut. Intuition and gut is great. We should all have it. We should nurture it. That's a part of a great human being. But all companies should also have systems and processes which go up to the board so that there can be a challenge, an intelligent challenge, a debate. And the careful balance between short-term and long-term is one of great, enormous importance. Enormous importance.
Mr. Gopalakrishnan?
I think the realization that the brand has a value, and I think, I don't know, Mundi will agree with me, that realization will come faster in companies which are long surviving. If you've been around 100 years, there must be something you're doing right. Your species is unique. There are large segments of Indian business where you're in it for the quick ride. If you're valuation, then you're out. I think Unnila will have a tough time selling brand ideas to those guys.
No, that's why we are very tough.
Yeah, we heard that. Sanjay Kapoor?
I think from my perspective, establishing a social engine is what will drive it. When I say a social engine, it's the people that you hire, it's their rewards and recognitions, it's their measurements. The whole social engine has to be created which promotes this concept. It is not going to happen by doing a few things right and a few things wrong.
Okay. Mr. Godrej?
I think the biggest challenge is getting the team to focus on long-term value creation. I think once you get that balance right, things tend to work out rather well.
Professor McDonald, the final closing word is yours.
Well, if you look at what all the gurus say, people like the chairman of Procter & Gamble and Philip Kotler and people like that, they all say the same thing about what constitutes world-class marketing. And that there's three in this order. The first one is a deep understanding of the market. The second one is proper needs-based segmentation. And the third one is product development, positioning and branding. Now it's interesting to see where branding comes in this. It comes at the end of all of that. And no matter how clever you are, you're not going to have a successful brand. And valuing the brand is a waste of time if you haven't got the other things in place first. And, that I think that message has come over loud and clear today from our Indian business leaders. So I thank them very much for that. And it encourages me that I haven't wasted 72 years of my life.
Okay, on that note, thank you, Professor McDonald. Thank you, Adi Godrej. Thank you, Sanjay Kapoor, Mr. Gopalakrishnan, and Unni Krishnan.